Hello, everyone, and welcome to another Sanctuary for All talk on the Sermon on the Mount. My name is Ryan, and again, I am very humbled and pleased to be able to share the Sermon on the Mount with you and all the different ways that it has inspired me over the years and continues to inspire me and continue to do so until the day I die, for sure, because it is just by far the greatest sermon any of us have ever read and something worthy of perpetual and continual study throughout our lives, which is why I've broken them down into sections. And I think by the end of this study of the Sermon on the Mount, we're probably going to end up with about 50 hours worth of me talking. I hope you can put up with that much. But, but the good news is that it's not about me. It is about the message itself. It's about Jesus, and it's about the sermon that he gave to us. And, we just did the portion on love your enemies. And now we get into Matthew chapter 6, which is the charitable deeds. We've transitioned into a whole new section of the Sermon on the Mount. And it is a brilliant and wonderful piece of the sermon itself, and takes us Matthew 5 kind of focused on all inner transformation, things like anger, lust, retaliation, hatred, and love of our enemies. Matthew 6 now shifts motivation and visibility to things like, why do we do good? Who is our audience? And are we serving God, or are we feeding our own identities? And this is a very strategic and surgical thing that he's doing here, going from each piece to each piece. They all lead into the next part so wonderfully and wisely, and something that continues to reveal its wisdom to me over time. And so hopefully out of this, you guys will get something too from it. And I know I do, and I really enjoy doing these videos and sharing them with all of you. So, like I said, tonight we are on Matthew chapter 6, and just verses 1 through 4, and I'll read them to you here. Verse 1 starts with, "Take heed that you do not do your charitable deeds before men, to be seen by them. Otherwise you have no reward from your Father in heaven. Therefore, when you do a charitable deed, do not sound a trumpet before you as the Pharisees do it in the synagogues and in the streets, that they may have glory from men. Assuredly, I say to you, they have their reward. But when you do a charitable deed, do not let your left hand know what your right hand is doing, that your charitable deed may be seen in secret, and your Father who sees in secret will himself reward you openly." This is a chapter where Jesus starts to dismantle performative righteousness. It removes the ego, that refuge in ourselves that we retreat to after we have a moral teaching, and which we've all seen this, right? We've gone to church, or seen somebody talk, spiritual talk or what, and we walk out of there like, oh, well, I've already got all these principles, and I already know this kind of stuff. And we get into this moral self-praise, which is the left-hand, right-hand thing, but we'll get to that in a minute. And this section also exposes how even good behavior can become self-serving. So this is kind of also where the audience that is hearing this for the first time, when Jesus is saying it, it kind of removes their ability to argue morally with him, because the issue becomes about the heart and not the rule. The core claim Jesus is making here, righteousness can be corrupted even when the action itself is good. So he's not criticizing giving or charity or generosity or obedience. He's exposing why those things are done. And this is very important because he assumes his listeners will give to the needy. The issue is not whether you give, but who gets paid when you do. In Jesus' time, a charitable deed meant direct material aid to the poor, not general good works. volunteering, or moral behavior. It was hands-on mercy, not an abstract kindness like just writing somebody a check and going, "What a great guy I am." A charitable deed, what counted as that in the first century Jewish world was almsgiving, right? Which is the primary meaning to that. And it's like giving money, food, or goods directly to widows, orphans, the disabled, the sick, the landless, poor, often done daily, not occasionally. And this was not optional generosity in that world back then. This was seen as part of the covenant faithfulness of Jewish life. So this was a very important piece he was bringing to them for several different reasons. But what did not count as charity back then, and this is also important, charity did not mean teaching publicly or praying eloquently or fasting visibly or being morally upright or having a correct theology or public piety. That's none of those exposures of our personality or our, look at me type thing. If you just were like me, you would learn so much. None of that was charity at all. But some people have turned their example of their life and sharing it in thinking that they are doing some good charitable deed. Charity, in the context of what he was addressing with the crowd, was our direct aid and help to others in need and who did not have things. And this could mean having them over for dinner because they don't have a meal, giving them something to wear, allowing them to stay in your home, allowing them to glean your fields and take food from your property because they had very little. And one of the reasons why this mattered so much socially back then is because charity in that culture created societal hierarchy, right? It established who was poor. It built reputation for others. It generated public obligation from the recipient. Like a giver could easily become a benefactor or a moral superior or a quiet controller of others. So Jesus is stepping in here and saying essentially, do not turn your mercy into leverage. And that fits into the, don't do it to be seen. In a lot of ways, what that actually means is when we are seen, it secures our identity. Oh, look at that man. He's got so much and he gives to so many people. So our identity gets wrapped up in being seen as doing our charitable acts. It establishes a moral superiority. It confirms our worth, and it protects our ego, and also to control how others perceive you, right? So it's like using righteousness as currency. Jesus is dismantling the economy of I am good because others see that I am good. And why this is especially dangerous here is because in almsgiving, these things happened in synagogue collections. So they were in public. They happened in city gates. They happened in marketplaces. They happened where beggars gathered. It was public by default. People would see you giving to them. So, Jesus, of course, not being naive, he knows people will see. What he's forbidding here is an intentional display, an internal scorekeeping, and identity building through generosity. This is very human. We do, as human beings, so many things to be seen. And the weird part about it is this all comes from a place of insecurity. It comes from a place of we ourselves don't have a central identifying core because our central identifying core is God. And that's what we get to in the God rewarding us openly. So this need to be seen, this need for others to recognize us and praise us and glorify us and thank us even. The need for that comes from a place of lack, comes from a place of I don't have enough, I'm not enough, I don't think highly of myself, which a person who's constantly bragging about himself actually thinks very low of themselves, because a person who has self-confidence doesn't need to brag about themselves at all. They actually have self-confidence. They have a central form of security within them that has been developed through their own relationship with life around them and their experiences and whatnot. But people who actually have a real sense of self-worth do not require anyone else to acknowledge it or even see it. So when we need people to think of us in good terms in order for us to gain something from it, we completely negate the act itself that we're doing, and that's what he is saying. They have no reward from God in this because they have received the reward already. They've received the payment of being seen doing it. And that, because that's actually what they're doing. They're not actually, sure, they may be giving food to somebody without food, but that's the facade. The reality is they're going, look at me giving food to somebody without food. That's the real transaction taking place. And you look at them giving food and go, wow, what a great person. He's giving food. And so they're literally using the misfortune of another human being, their pain, their suffering, their sorrow, their lack of provisions and needs like food, clothing, shelter, money sometimes, opportunity for a job or whatnot. They're using someone else's misfortune to gain greater fortune for themselves. And that isn't charity at all. That's a lie. And it's meant to deceive all of us into thinking they are wonderful people, when in fact, they're literally abusing somebody without to gain something greater for themselves. And they wouldn't need to do that at all if they actually understood their worth. Because if they understood their actual worth to God, they would also understand the worth of the person who is without. And their heart would want to give to them. Hey, my brother over here has nothing to eat. Let me give him some food, because he is as worthy as I. And I have this abundance that God has given me. God has given me this abundance. Let me give this to my fellow who has very little right now, who knows what he's going through. But see, we look at them and say, oh, they must have sinned against God. That's why they're going through this curse. Jesus is dismantling all that in the Sermon on the Mount and removing our ability to be judges in these things and telling us, why we're supposed to be charitable. Not for the reasons that were rampant at that time and are rampant in our day to day. We see people constantly talking about how their philosophy, their religion, their politics, their way of doing things, their side of one thing or another is the correct one. And if people would just listen to me, and, oh, I'm the commentator on this, and I've been hired to give my commentary because I'm such a well-respected person. That all comes from lack. We don't need anyone's respect if we respect ourselves. And we can't respect others if we don't respect ourselves. So our respect for others is a show also. We are just doing it to gain something, to gain favor, to gain security, to protect a fear. None of it is for the act of having an actual relationship with somebody, or charity, or understanding, or love. It's not giving, it's taking. And this is what's being addressed in this very thing. Do not do this to be seen. So it's, the way it happens is seen. People see who's giving and who's doing and who's is what. It's all about to be seen. It's about our motives. and why we do things, because it's hypocrisy. And the Greek idea behind hypocrisy is that it's an actor on a stage. A hypocrite is like an actor on a stage. So the hypocrisy that Jesus is talking about here is not about doing bad things secretly or failing morally. It's doing good things for the sake of the audience. And that's why he says they have received their reward already. The reward wasn't God. The reward was the attention they were seeking. And then he goes a step further. And this gets very deep when he gets into the left hand, right hand thing. And I will read this to you again. So, in verse 3, he says, "But when you do a charitable deed, do not let your left hand know what your right hand is doing." So first, he's saying, don't do this to be seen by others. And now he's saying, don't even do it to be seen by yourself. This is where the knife twists even further, all right? The line is often softened, but it shouldn't be. Jesus is not saying don't brag. He is saying don't even internally curate your own righteousness. Don't replay it, don't store it, don't build up a self-image around it. Don't let your ego audit your generosity. It goes much deeper than secrecy from others. It is secrecy from the self. And that's what's radical, because first of all, we have to get off this idea that we're the ones that are creating the blessings in order that we are giving to others. I'm drinking a coffee right now. I didn't grow the coffee. I didn't grow the beans. I didn't harvest the beans. I didn't package the beans. I don't own the land, the soil. Yet, I have it. It is here in my hand, and I get to enjoy it. But if I go, oh, I gave coffee to someone else, it's like I'm saying I am the originator of coffee. I am the originator of the money that I gave to other people. And I'm self-praising myself as though it all came from me. And it all came from God. And many people had a hand in it. Many people had a hand in me having this cup of coffee right now. I didn't make the cup it's in. Somebody else did. Somebody else painted it. Somebody else packaged it, shipped it. Somebody else put the work into it. All the things that we receive in life, all of them, God gave to us. We did not give them to ourselves. We think, well, I earned this because I worked for money to pay for this coffee. Well, somebody else gave me a job. Somebody else did work so that I had a work to go to. Somebody else supplied things. I am the receiver. Anything I have that I can give to somebody is something I have received. Even if I myself labored into it, there's an element that had nothing to do with me. A farmer will tell you this. They do, they plow the soil. The soil, they didn't make the soil. They didn't make the laws or the physics or the seeds or the rules to how things grow. We discovered it. We discovered, put the seeds this far apart in this deep of soil, do this kind of thing, whatever. Give it water. Water, we didn't make water. We didn't make the soil. We didn't make the seed. We're just the ones who tend it. And then it grows, and we weed it because that helps keep it strong. But if we go to give that food to another and go, I have given my food, the earth gave us the food, the water gave us the food, the seed gave us the food. Whoever created all that gave us that. And all of it comes from God. We may have a hand in doing some of the work. But it wasn't ours from the beginning. It's only ours if we created the earth and created the soil and created the seed and created the water and created the sun and created the light and created the laws. You see where I'm going with all that? I may seem a bit intense, but it's because I'm a person myself that just used to self-reward myself for so much goodness that I have done. And I myself came from a place of such lack of actual self. Everything about me was kind of a facade, and I would talk a certain way to certain people to make sure I protected my interests and stuff like that because I always coming from a place of lack and not enough. And Jesus is trying to restore the truth to us here and saying, by doing this, you will restore the truth to yourself. That's why he ends it with God blessing us openly. And we'll get to what that actually means also. So Jesus is not saying, forget your actions literally. He knows you can't. He's not telling us to suppress our memory or to become unaware of what we've actually done or to practice dissociation from ourselves. It's not about self-denial or amnesia. It's about how the self organizes meaning around action. The psychological model that Jesus is kind of assuming here is that we have a divided inner life, something modern psychology fully actually agrees with. One part of the self acts, the other part of the self narrates, and another part evaluates, and then another part stores identity. So in modern terms, it's a behavior system, an ego self-concept, a memory and narrative construction. And Jesus is targeting the narrator. The right hand in this is the acting self. The right hand represents the part of you that does something, that takes the action, the immediate embodied response, compassion in motion, or action without self-reference. It's a pre-reflection of action, helping because help is needed. The left hand is the auditing self in this context. The left hand represents the observing ego, the internal witness, the part that keeps score, the identity builder. This is the part that asks, what does this say about me? Will this be remembered? Does this confirm my goodness? So, and even that's not about evil, but it's dangerous when fed by mercy because we start keeping score against others. Don't you see what I have done for you? What I have done for you? I gave somebody something God gave me. God did for them. That's where we get off track. It's not that there's no value to what we do at all. The problem is our self-evaluation and judgment about the value of what we do for others. And, that's why I think laying down your life is the greatest gift you can give to somebody. And part of laying down your life is anytime you are separating from your own self and wants to do for someone else authentically. Like maybe driving somebody, picking them up from the airport when they come back home from a trip. And so you're sacrificing your time and the things you want to do to pick somebody else up who needs a ride somewhere. That kind of fits into the realm of you laying down your own life. Now, ultimately, Jesus was talking about the full laying down of his life, which is about to happen for all of us. But there are things that fit within that realm. And anytime you're removing your own ego and your own self-centeredness and your own selfishness in order to be kind and helpful to another human being, that's a wonderful act of love towards another human being and part of that structure. But if we start evaluating it, look at the great things that I have done, we will immediately get off track and we will start resenting others because they're not doing the same for us. And so then once again, it's a negotiation. And it wasn't done out of love, and it wasn't done out of charity, and it wasn't done out of goodness. It was a business transaction. And our job here, if we are spiritually centered and trying to be disciples of Christ, or trying to live a spiritual life, or trying to live a principled life even, or even just a logical life or a moral life, we have to step outside uh, the self-centered ego and look at the actual true principles that existed long before us and will exist long after us and are required for life to exist in the first place and required for life to be eternal in the first place. And Jesus is giving us those principles right here. Um, so, one of the reasons why this was so radical to what he's saying is because most moral systems depend on a self reward. I am good because I do good. I deserve because I helped. And Jesus kind of cuts that loop. He wants us to have a secure identity even before we take any action, not identity constructed by the action. Because remember, this is about our true actual selves, the spirit within us that is life, not the mind, not the will of the flesh, which is formidable. And Paul talked about that later, about how formidable the flesh is and to contend with it. But the spirit is greater. And the spirit can tell the flesh what to do, basically, and can withhold from the flesh. The problem is we usually just succumb or give in or agree with it. But that's all a part of growing up, right? That's each and every one of us are where we are in life. And, one guy's learning this lesson that another guy learned 5 years ago, and another guy will learn 10 years from now or 5 years from now. So we can't look at any human being and think where they should be along the lines of their growth or what they should understand, because once again, that's getting us off track even from these ideas. We are still playing the judge. And then we're getting in their face to be seen by them about our wisdom, and they need to change because they're touching one of my fears that it's going to mess up my wants and what I need and how I think life should go. When we no longer depend on moral performance, when, Jesus knew that the most dangerous audience for our good deeds isn't other people, it's our own ego. So when we no longer depend on that and think along the lines of I need other people to recognize me and I need to recognize me and constantly evaluate how I am, when we don't self-reward, our worth is no longer tied to our usefulness. And our identity is not propped up by helping, and our goodness doesn't need proof. It creates an inner stability. We don't need to be seen. We don't need to be thanked. We don't need to be remembered. And we don't need to be superior. And that is an experience that most people never get to have because this is how we do it. We have to set aside ourselves. Compassion becomes clean under these guidelines. We're protected from resentment and we're protected from burnout. We gain psychological integrity and wholeness by living this way. And we actually experience being seen without self-display. And we don't even need to know that other people are seeing us. But every once in a while, someone will say, hey, I see you do a lot of good for other people. I just think it's wonderful. We still will get that from time to time. But one of the biggest psychological twists that need to come off this is that when our self-evaluation is based on the good deeds we do for others, that means we constantly need others who are suffering in order to gain for ourselves self-respect. And so some of us have actually put ourselves throughout life into relationships with people who are broken on purpose in order to fulfill this lack in ourselves. And we're using another human being's suffering for self-gain. And this is one of the reasons why a lot of people don't really look very deep into these particular verses here. Because on the outset, that just seems like, oh, yeah, don't do that to be seen. Don't let your left hand and your right hand know what you're doing. Okay, yeah, you should do it humbly. But to look at what it actually means and what it reveals about our human psychology, that, yeah, if I do this to be seen by others, this is what I'm lacking. And I wouldn't be lacking that if my faith was based on God, rather than my faith being based on my judgment of my lack. And I wouldn't need to self-evaluate if God qualified for me, if God was righteous, I wouldn't have to make myself righteous. I would say God is righteous, and when I live God's way, I experience his righteousness. That's the stuff beforehand, that you will be perfect as God is perfect. You will be whole. You will experience the wholeness of God when you love somebody for real, authentic, for no other reason. No negotiation. You're not getting anything out of it. You're just expressing love to them. You feel it yourself. You feel the love that you're actually trying to give away to another human being. You feel it yourself because that's the wholeness of God. It is very dangerous if we need others to suffer for us to feel meaningful. It may be subtle, but it's crucial. If our identity is built on helping, then we unconsciously need others to remain broken. And we will resist their independence from us. We over-insert ourselves into the lives of others, thinking we're doing goodness and righteousness, when really it's a transaction of self and it has nothing to do with God. We're just using what other people have taught us is, good. But we're thinking the good is coming from us. Well, I think this person needs this, and I think they should do that, so I'm going to make sure they have this, and I'm going to make sure they do that, because that's the right thing to do. And it's all our own ideas. It has nothing to do with God whatsoever. God isn't even there. You've got your reward. You have self-appraised yourself to be wonderful and be the only person with sanity in the room. And you've deluded yourself. How can I say these things? Because I have spent my whole life deluded. That is how I lived with all these, growing up in a cult, everything is about right and wrong and whether you're good enough and qualify enough. So psychologically, I had the royal flush of these issues that had to be looked at and had to be dealt with. And I had to humbly admit to friends and family and psychologists and all sorts of people throughout my life. And ultimately, it's God. Once again, here we are. God himself already knew this, had the answers to it, and presented it to us and said, hey, do this because this is what goes wrong in people. So do this instead, and it will correct this error in you. And when you realize, I don't have the strength and the power to even begin doing those types of things, we suddenly realize we need God. God is the strength and the power. God's the one who created the soil and the seed and the water and the sunlight and gravity and everything required to grow a coffee bean. I'm the one who gets to enjoy the coffee. I'm not the provider. So, oddly enough, the more I accept the truth of how limited my own input is in all the goodness I've done in my life, I'm actually more secure, not less secure. The ones who are less secure are the ones still living in the idea that they have to measure up to their own ideas of what is right and wrong, and other people have to measure up to their ideas of what's right and wrong. And it's insanity. It's absolute insanity. And that's just spiritual abuse. For us to need other people to suffer in order for us to insert ourselves with our charity for them. We can help somebody and then let go. We can heal somebody and move on. We don't need to be needed. That's ethical maturity. It's moral maturity. We don't need to be needed. And why this protects people from spiritual abuse? Because this teaching itself removes moral leverage. It prevents hierarchy. It stops leaders from weaponizing generosity. It breaks the link between giving and control. If righteousness must be hidden, it can't be used to shame others, it can't be used to demand loyalty, and it can't be used to claim authority. So this teaching itself is also very anti-cult and anti-performance and anti-spiritual ego teaching. It's revolutionary. And so when we look at our charitable deed may be in secret, that your Father who sees in secret will himself reward you openly. The open reward is not a trophy. It's not public praise from God. It's not proof of moral superiority. It's not a guarantee of comfort or success on this earth. Remember, Jesus himself suffered greatly on this earth. It is something that others can see and feel and in reality respond to, but it's without us orchestrating it. It's things like inner peace, an unshakable steadiness, a clarity and wisdom in decision making at times when nobody really knows what to do. It's things like trust from others without us trying to gain trust or without manipulation. They just, for some reason, feel this connection that they can trust you with something and you weren't even seeking it or looking for it, because God has become the one you glorify in all the things, not only that you have received, but also in the things that you give. The openness of gifts from God is also like restoration of our relationships and fruitfulness that outlasts us. The ability to create things that will live on long after we're gone and maybe enhance the lives of others. God lends his authority through us. And so that authority exists without force. There's just an authenticity within our lives that is easily recognizable. And I've known very humble and very wonderful and beautiful people, and they act with a sense of awe and reverence towards God without even talking about that that's what they're doing, because none of it is about themselves. All of it is simply about God. And they live that way and rely on that, and you can see this great light in them. And some people, will go, well, what about provisions? Won't God bless us with things so that our life's easier? Well, Jesus promises provisions, daily bread, what is needed, not what feeds the ego, and what's sufficiency without excess obsession. Our daily bread. Give us this day our daily bread, which is in the Lord's Prayer, which we'll get to soon. Open rewards are not a guarantees of ease. Jesus himself had open authority and open wisdom and open favor, and still he suffered, he was misunderstood, and he was rejected. So an open reward doesn't mean worldly success on any level. It doesn't mean, it's not a guarantee you will be seen. It's a guarantee you won't need to be. You yourself will feel closer to God. You yourself will feel closer to the nature of life. You yourself will feel closer to wisdom, to understanding, to kindness, compassion, charity. And you yourself will agree with the beauty of these things and the awe of them and want even more humility and more grace and more peace. And you will want to give more to God in glory of gratitude of the things that you have in your life. And you will want to share those things with others. joyfully, because it's not about lack anymore. God, as the provider, has no lack, is able to provide all things, and definitely is able to provide your emotional security, your intellectual security, and your spiritual security, as well as your physical. It may not always look that way. I myself, right now, you know, and many of us are going, how are we going to get through tomorrow? How are we going to get through the next week? Somehow we do. But what's more important is that even through what appears to be our own internal, physical fears, is the excitement and the exuberance and the joy in being able to sit down and do something like this video. This is greater than all of it. It's greater than my fears. It's greater than my angers. It's greater than my resentments. It's greater than my worries, because God is greater. God is life always, and life continually, and blessings always, and blessings continually. And so the things that we do for the glory of God, rather than for self-glory of ourselves, or so that others glorify us, but if we simply do it for the glory of God above ourselves, God himself says, I will take care of you. I will share my glory with you in one way or the other. And we have to remember that it was the Father, who Jesus is talking about, who said, I want none to perish. I have decided all of them are worthy of eternal life. Go and offer it to them. Because he still respects our choice to choose life or death. He doesn't force this upon us. We can say no. He doesn't want us to. He wants us to have life, and have life more abundantly. But we can't have life more abundantly if we're living in this sense of lack and need other people to acknowledge that we exist, for us to accept that we exist, to acknowledge that we did all this great, wonderful things in order for us to feel like we're enough. We have to be, God wants us to be enough. And so he's enough. And if our reliance is on God, we get to experience what it's like to be enough. And to be in fullness, and to be whole, and to be perfect, as it says, or whole, as God is whole. I knew this portion wouldn't be as long as some of the others, thankfully, but I also have a machine in the house making a lot of noise, so I hope that wasn't too annoying to anybody. But I just wanted to say that on a personal level, this, like I said, has been something that has dogged me my whole life. And I think it is common to all human beings that we get these ideas in our head. Oh, if I do this for this person, they're going to, oh, thank you so much. You're wonderful. But maybe we can stop and ask ourselves, why do I need them to do that? Why can't I just give it to them so that they have a wonderful experience? Why do I need to be acknowledged, to be rewarded? Why do I need to self-acknowledge and self-reward? God himself acknowledged us and sent his Son so that we have eternal life and have the kingdom offered to us, of which there is no lack, and there will be abundance of everything always, forever, eternally. And even these concepts of this thing, this kingdom and all, is a concept for us to understand. We can't even actually comprehend what it actually is, but it was put into words for us to understand, because we can understand those kind of concepts. But we're told it's even greater than how it's described. It's something beyond our ability to even comprehend. And that is what God wants to give to us. And we can start living in that energy and that spirit and that power and that authority right now by abandoning the needs and wants of the flesh, which are all based in lack, all based into I'm not good enough unless other people desire me, or I'm not good enough unless I make this kind of money, because nobody will think I'm a great guy, or all these things we talk, or I'm not, good enough if I don't have a certain intellect, or if I don't have anything. We just need to stop the judgment completely and realize God is good enough. And all that we have to give others, God gave to us in the first place. I often use the example that I've spent my life as a musician. And I didn't make music. Music existed before me. How we hear notes existed before me. The percussive system of our ears and what is beautiful to us and what isn't beautiful to us existed before me. And I didn't create any of those kind of laws, and I didn't create any of that kind of experience. I didn't create the trees that made the wood that my guitars are built from, or the metal that the strings are built from. These are all things we have constructed to try and express what's already there. They all come from God. And to have to stand on stage in order to be fulfilled and get glory and people screaming it, shouts at what great lack exists. Because first of all, very few people get to have an experience like that. Even if it's a small one, just in a small nightclub or whatnot, and it's 40 people, it's still not something anybody, who else ever gets 40 people going, yeah, you rock, But to be in a place where that is needed in order to feel like a worthy person is insane. I came from places like that. But by acknowledging God and realizing I didn't make music, and I didn't make why music's great, and I didn't even choose why I like music, I just discovered I love it. The more I acknowledge God in it, the more I understand what a great and wonderful and powerful and beautiful thing music is, and to be a part of this thing that God gave us makes me no longer want to take it lightly and use it as an ego boost, but use it instead, or be a part of music instead for the betterment of everyone, not just self. It helps us grow up into a bigger and better world that we could have never conceived of on our own. And it starts, it starts throughout the whole Sermon on the Mount. But this section here, just about what we actually give to others and why we give to others, will cause a huge transformation in each and every one of us. If we study it and examine ourselves and, take that inventory of, okay, well, am I doing this for the real reason to love someone and care for them, or am I doing it to get some self-gratification, or am I doing it so that other people go, wow? And the more we kind of look at those things, the more we'll discover them and find them, and we'll actually start to find out why. Why do I have this lack? I have this lack because, a long time ago somebody said I would never amount to anything, and I've believed them. And so therefore I'm constantly trying to prove to this person who no longer exists that I'm going to amount to somebody. Look at me now. It's me trying to convince myself I'm worth something. God himself said you are worth laying down his own life for, so that we would be saved. He was the worth for us to cover that actual perception and experience that we're having of not being of worth. because the Father himself said, I don't want anyone lost. I love them all. So let's take a look at love and let's take a look at charity and our own behaviors. Thank you so much for allowing me to share all this with you. I look forward to the next section next time. I will talk to you soon.